Hi and welcome back to our 11th episode on how to build a habit tracker. Today I will explain in one way how to make a streak counter. So far a streak counter is a very simple logic. There's no date considered, no date. It's basically just a toggle that we're increasing or decreasing based on the value. So we'll never have something more than one basically. So to go and start implementing our habit tracker, first we'll need to change our habit structure. And we'll basically remove the done is done flagged. I want to create something more like last date done. So when was the last date our habit was done? And it's going to be an optional date. So this is the only change we're going to go do in our model. The rest will happen to our logic mostly of the habit button view model. So for the habit button view model, we'll do a bit of refactoring here. Basically, when the button is click, we'll just erase all of that. I also want to start implementing a bit of extensions because it's going to become a very long code. Extension for habit button view model, and the first one is going to be based on the delete function, and we'll just basically move that in here. And for this other extension that I'll create is going to be for our streak function. Functionality maybe. And so this button, click. When we click the button, the only thing that it does is it works on the streak counter. This will allow you to move the code some other places in your node, other file. It's going to be easier to move. And by marking, you also have those comments that's going to be showing in your sidebar, which is also nicer and easier to read. So for the button click, we'll want a few more functionality, which will be the functionality to increase the counter, increase streak, and we'll need another function to reset. Or maybe validate. And I also want to create something else that is going to allow me to keep track of the date. You know what? Actually, I'll put it after here. Func is last date same as today. And last date, we're talking about the last date the habit was done. So first thing that I will check into, I'll create is last date same as today. So if our habit dot last date done doesn't equal to nil. So if you remember, we did that as an optional value. So if there's no value to it, it's going to throw an error if I don't validate that first. And our last date, I'll just return a bool. A good way to make sure whenever you return a bool, a good way to make it work is to is it a yes no question? Return false. And the way that it works, it's easier to read your code, and you know if it's a yes no question and it's going to be returning a boolean. So we had our date format that we created a bit earlier in our Abbott list view model, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll use the same formatter. In here, the only difference that I want to create is instead of long, I'll make it short. I don't want to use as much place. It's not for the user, it's just for us to compare. So the formatter will allow us to create a date format that we'll be able to compare for today. Let today, it's going to be a formatter dot string and from today's date. And we'll create another one, which is the last done. Last day done. Which is going to be the formatter dot string dot from. And this one is going to be habit dot last day done. Last date done. I'll actually call it last date done as well. And it's going to throw us an error because it's optional. So I just need to force it in because we already validated outside. So we have our today's date and the last day done. And what we want to basically compare is those two. I just want to return if today is equal to last date done. If it is the same date, it's going to be true. Otherwise, it's going to return false, and it's going to return false if it's null. So now on our function button click is first, we want to look if is last day same as today increase. And actually, it's not if it's equal that we want to increase. It's if it's not equal that we want to increase. And you will see a bit more logic here. So basically, whenever it's not the same day, if we click on it, we want it to be increased. If it's the same day, nothing should happen. The increase streak, we basically want to increase the habit that was created on this one here. So this one which is the visual that we see, we want to increase it, but we'll also want to increase the database that we created in the previous episode. So in this increase streak, we'll go with the habit dot last day done, and we'll create the update the value to be today's date. And the habit will also go with the streak, and we'll do plus equal 1, that we can increase the day. And now, let me get our habit service. The habit service, we want to increase that as well. And the habit service, if you see, there's a few mark that we created. It can be transformed into extension as well. So habit service, and I'll move this here to here, and I'll move those two in here, and those two in another extension of habit service, and the mark is going to be just outside. And so add delete habit. And the reason why I put now the habit in front is because we want to add a full new habit or delete a full habit. Now I want to add the option to increase the streak or reset the streak. And so to increase the streak, func increase streak. And the way I want to create, the underscore here to make it easier to read, I also want to make it easier to read. So instead of making it non-optional, optional, sorry. I want to make it non-optional, and it's going to be called for habit. And we'll use in the function, the variable that's going to be referred, it's going to be habit, and it's going to be of type habit. It makes a lot of habit, but basically when we will be able to call it here increase streak, let's say I type habit service dot share dot increase streak for, you can see here it says for habit, and we can just put the habit itself. So it is an easier way to make it increase and to make it readable for your code. But here the for habit is really just for this one here. The habit here is going to be the one that we're going to be using as a reference, as similar to here. So now the way it's going to work, in our array of habit, we want to be able to find which index is the habit saved at. So we'll go in the habits dot first index where, and where we want to find is where our $0, so the ones that we're currently looping through .id equals to habit.id. So same as our remove all, but we're gonna try to find the first index that match the ID, the description here. If nothing is found, we'll just return. Now that we have the index, we'll go to the habit list that we have, and we'll take the index. And the way it's going to work is we'll do the same as what we did in the other logic. The last date done equals date. Oh, you know what? Since this is already done here, I could always, let me see if that would work, but I could just do habit equal habit. So we're replacing the current habit with the one that we have here, and we want to save habits. And so now our streak should be increasing. If let's say I do play and I try it out. Oh, build failed. Oh, it's our sorry. So the is done, now that we deleted it, that doesn't work anymore. Instead of using the is done, we'll use the view model dot is last date same as today. And mine as well, let me just show you something real quick. Build succeed. All right, get started, create a new one. Command K, and let's just put a smiley, smile to a random person. So we have our new habit here. If I click on it, you can see the streak got adapted. And if I close this, I go back, get started, it is still here, it is still increase. Fantastic. You can see here, I'm still able to click, but nothing happens. I should not be able to click on repeat. It looks like there's a bug somewhere. The way to avoid this from happening is we'll need to go the body, our button body. So it's going to be just two brackets under, and we'll go to disabled, and we'll use the view model dot is last date same as today. Now, if I rebuild, get started, you can see my day is still a streak. It's still marked as done. But if I click, nothing happens. But it still doesn't show like it's bad or anything. So we still are able to see that we did it, but we're not able to interact with it. Now, the way to test different date is you're able to quit. Let's just close this. Close the simulator. In your settings of your laptop, go to general, go to date and time. You'll need to turn off the set time automatically, and you'll need to manually set this. So I can set it to the next day, set. So the way it works is the simulator will use the same day that you put for your system. And you can see here, it starts, get started, little smiley. It doesn't have the mark done now. And I can click on it and we're at 2 days streak. However, we have nothing that resets the streaks. So we want to be able to reset this so it doesn't keep on going every day, even when you skip. So going back into the code, our button works properly. We want to be able to func reset streak for habit. And we'll use the same bracket. So the same structure as the increase streak. And we'll go back here, the validate streak. For the validate streak, it asks a little bit more. What we want to do is create a new file and we'll create a calendar extension. And this calendar extension is not too hard or anything. The way calendar work is you're able to look at a few, you're able to compare dates together and dates you can see from to, but you don't have any date calendar that you're able to look that gives you the number of days difference between. And I don't want to get the time difference between, I want to get the days difference between. So I can look into when was the last date the user click on it and what is their current date today. If it's more than 1 day, 2 days, basically it should be reset. So the way it's going to work is create an extension for calendar. So basically the same as we were doing for our habit service, but now we're creating for calendar. And we're creating a function that looks at the number of days between. And it's going to be from a specific date. And to another specific date, and it's going to return an integer, which is going to be the number of days. So we'll have let from date, which is going to be equal to from, start of day for from. And we'll create the same to date, and it's going to be from to. And we'll have the let number of days, which equals to date component, and it's going to be of type days, and we'll basically do from from date to date. And we're gonna return the result. I got the typos. Number of days dot day plus 1. And so basically we want to return the number of days that is between the two dates. And we'll be able to use that in our habit button view model here in our validate streak. So now first, let's go to validate streak. Whenever we open the app, we want the app to look into if our streak is valid or not. So in our init function, we'll call validate streak. And our validate streak is going to be here. It's going to look into first, what was the last date done? Last date done equals to habit dot last date done, else return. So basically we can consider that if there's no last date done, there should not be any streak by default. So we'll just return. It should already be 0. We don't care. We'll just stop there. If, however, there is a date, we'll create a calendar, very basic calendar. Identifier, and it's going to be a ISO. And this calendar will allow us to compare. But to look at our number of days. Calendar.number of days from date, which is our last date done, to date, which is today's date. And we want it to be bigger than 2. If that's the case, the habit dot streak will equal back to 0. And we'll also call the habit service dot shared dot reset streak for habit. And in this one, it's going to be the same as the previous logic. We'll just reset. And since we have the same here and we don't do anything different, let me actually just test this real quick. Get started. Our streak is already done. Let's close this. Let's set date to 1 day after. I need to close this. Try again. So we can see it's not erased. I can click on it. It's going to increase still. And if I close, and reopen, we're still all good. And I'll close this again. Change this date for now 2 days to be able to test it. Close our simulator. Start it back. And now our streak should be to 0. Get started, and date streak 0. So we have our streak counter that works, that has a logic that is able to keep track of which day we're on, and that is able to increase it. Now, you can see here, this is a little repeat. I can probably just call it update selected habit, and update specific habit. So the way it's going to be here instead is I'm going to call this update habit without an S. And I will delete this reset. And so this technically could be used for edit functionality of our habit. But here, now it's gonna throw an error, the reset streak. I want to update, and the same for you here. So it's pretty good. There's one last thing that I want to fix, and it's the day here. 1 day, it's fine. If it's 0, it should be 0 days, and 2, it should be 0 days. So in our button view, I want to be able to change here the, where's the day? Okay, here. So this, I will escape, and I will do a view model streak equals to 1. We're showing day. Else, we're showing days. Oops. And it will remove this day here. Okay, and to see if that works, we'll just close this little thing here. I want to be able to, I want to be able to look at my editor, the assistants, layout. I want to see the canvas. I want this to be loading. So we have 0 days streak. And you can see our, I didn't show in the previous video, but our developer preview is still showing here. So let's say I use 1. It's going to use the workout. Now my developer preview, I might want to have different streak, like this one is a 2 and this one is a 1. And back into my habit button view. So 2 days, and let's say we use 2, 1 day streak. So now our days is conjugated with the numbers, it match, and it makes it more professional. So we can see now we're able to add, we're able to delete, we're able to count our streak. Oh, we're actually not able to delete because of my disabled. Actually, okay, I can say everything works except that because we're disabling the button, we're making it not work anymore. So we cannot delete if we want to modify it. The way we can do is we'll go back to the button view where I did the disabled, and I'll add a second condition. So if it is the same date as today, it's disabled, and if it is not in is edit mode. And so I'll just start that again. Get started. I cannot click on it. And when I try, if I click edit, I'm able to click on it. which is great. However, it allows me to click on it again. And so to do that, what I could do instead of doing our opacity thing is I can go back to our habit list view model, button view model. At the top is delete. I'll actually put the opacity deleted. Button opacity removed. We'll keep the deleted here that we're going to use, and our habit button view wherever we use the opacity. Opacity removed. And we'll actually use our button if view model dot is deleted. If it is not deleted, we'll want to show this button. And so if we start back, replace, get started. I don't have anything. Let's add a little something. Key C key do. I click, I cannot click anymore. Edit, I can click, but I need to delete and it disappear. And I click done, it refresh, and everything is beautiful. So now we fixed the issue we had with our streak and the edits functionality that got removed because of that. Now there's one last thing that's going to be left to implement, and it is our day streak counter for the entire list. So if you had any issues, don't forget to comment down below. If you like this video, don't forget to put a thumbs up. Otherwise, if you want to follow this series along, don't forget to subscribe.